Smashing those protein goals can be hard, but one way I start my day is with a high-protein breakfast featuring Jones Dairy Farm's chicken sausage. Jones Dairy Farm makes premium crafted meat products such as all-natural breakfast sausage, available in pork, chicken and turkey, and center-cut Canadian bacon. 100% of their products are made in the USA with materials sourced primarily from the Midwest. Jones Dairy Farm products are available at most grocery stores, including Costco, and you can find them in a store near you at jonesdairyfarm.com.
5 a.m. I'm up with a crisp Celsius energy drink. Running 12 miles today. Grab a green juice, quick change, and head to work. Meetings, workshops. One more Celsius, no slowing down. Working late, but obviously still meeting the girls for a little dancing. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
Today on CityCast Houston, it's Friday, so we're breaking down the big news from the week with Chron.com's Faith Bugenhagen and Maggie Gordon with Straight Arrow News. It's Friday, June 27th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Hey, Maggie, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
And Faith, welcome back as well. And I want to start with you because this week it has been all about Governor Abbott's veto of the controversial THC ban. Faith, you've been on this hemp beat, and we'll talk about the bill as well. But I want to start with this break between the governor and lieutenant governor. What is happening right now?
Yeah, so to your point, the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, had long advocated for the THC ban, which we saw vetoed from the Governor Abbott. And the Lieutenant Governor was a staunch supporter. He was the one who really introduced this as a priority within this legislative session. And obviously, as we saw, the governor did a late night veto right before the deadline, which left Dan Patrick pretty upset. He held a press conference. He took shots at the governor, even though he did maintain, we're going to work together, especially as a special session was called for July. But there were a lot of heavy-handed comments from Dan Patrick about how not happy he was with Governor Abbott.
Faith, this is something that I always have trouble figuring out where we are in the process of this. Can you kind of explain that about the bill and where we stand?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So there was a bill introduced within the regular session, Senate Bill 3, and that effectively would have banned all consumable THC products. So think gummies, edibles, etc. And Dan Patrick, as I mentioned, was a staunch advocate for this. He really wanted this outright ban, and Governor Abbott's veto effectively barred that ban. And we're going to go back into special session in July to revisit Senate Bill 3, but it is very unlikely that it would be a proposed outright ban. Instead, the governor has made it pretty clear in a proclamation explaining the veto that he was looking to regulate and restrict it. For example, make labels clear as well as define products and what they include. So further cracking down on these products, but not banning it like the lieutenant governor would have wanted.
And Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is all in on this, right? Like I saw that quote where he said, if you don't like this, then vote me out because I want to make sure that Texans aren't getting high. Like that was paraphrasing, but that's what it seems like. And with Governor Abbott saying, all right, well, let's meet up and let's figure out a regulation. What kind of strain is this going to put on their relationship? Have they talked about that at all? Or is that something that we'll kind of figure out as we go?
Yeah, so Dan Patrick went as far as to say that Abbott wanted to legalize marijuana in Texas, which Abbott came out and said, hey, that's not what we're looking to do. We're just looking to restrict it for the proper consumers, which are those obviously above 21. But to your point, it does create a significant strain given the fact that this issue is almost akin to Abbott's school choice for Dan Patrick. And so you can see how significant that is. And it's not like they've not had fractures in the past, but I think this does present a significant fracture. And while Patrick did say, hey, we're willing to work with Abbott, there's obviously going to be some tension. And I think especially given what is revisited in the special session.
One of the things that really fascinated me is, you don't see them break from each other that often. And in that press conference when Daemmrich was first talking about it, he seemed so upset that the governor, I think he used the word like parachuted in on this at the last moment. I thought that was striking.
Oh, yeah. It's all been so striking and fascinating to me. So, Faith, you've been covering this, as I mentioned, and you are on top of this. So I have a few questions, right? Why wasn't regulation the first step here instead of just an outright ban? That's where I'm getting confused. And why didn't Daemmrich talk to Governor Abbott about this? Like, hey, let's figure this out. Like, can we regulate this? Because there are billions of dollars at stake here for the Texas economy. It is a huge industry.
Yeah. So I certainly can't speak to backdoor conversations between Abbott and Daemmrich, but what I can say is, to your point, Lieutenant Governor just hopped straight onto prohibition, and there was a lot of misinformation that was circulating within his office, as well as within law enforcement officials that were backing this ban. And I think that is what supported this effort to prohibition, as there was a lot of dangerous rhetoric, incident reports, which have since been debunked by industry experts as well as other reporters. And I think that was a mechanism of fear mongering to back that ban, whereas industry experts as well as other legislatures did come forth and introduce legislation that would have regulated, to your point, Raheel, instead of banned. And so I think we're going to see some of that language baked back into Senate Bill 3. But I do think it is interesting that he went straight off the deep end. But I think a lot of his arguments and what he thought was evidence kind of backed that. So we'll see regulation come forth. But it is interesting to see that it didn't take the focal point within his efforts.
Yeah, one other thing here, I saw a lot of highly conservative voices in Texas blasting Daemmrich and saying like, hey, come on, like, what is this crusade against THC? And another thing I want to mention, Governor Abbott pointed this out as well. Like, if this bill would have been signed into law, there was going to be a lot of lawsuits, and this was going to be tied up into the courts for a while. I actually talked to one big supplier of THC here in the state of Texas, and he told me that, look, we have lobbyists ready to go, and they have been lobbying, and also we're going to the courts. Like, this is going to be a long, drawn out process. So it wasn't going to end with a strike of the pen.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there was significant concern about future impending litigation, and a lot of hemp industry experts as well as business owners were already looking into that possibility.
By the way, Faith, again, is covering this story. I'm linking her work in our show notes. I want to move to Harris County Jail, and unfortunately, it is back in the news after 3 inmates died in a span of 48 hours. Now, the county jail has already had 10 inmates die in their custody this year, and it feels like we've been covering this issue for years. It reminds me of 2022 when there were 27 people who died while they were in custody at the county jail. And then the next year in 2023, 19 more people died and the FBI began an investigation. Maggie, it seems like we're talking about Harris County Jail all the time. Like, where do we go from here? We know it's a problem. It's been a problem. We even talked to DA Chantier about this, how he would fix that. And I'm going to link that interview in the show notes. But where do we go from here?
I mean, I've been covering local news here in Houston for over a decade now, and you're right. There are always headlines about this happening in the Harris County Jail. Before I was at Straight Arrow News, I was at the Houston Landing, and my colleague there, Alex Stuckey, she did an amazing investigation into the fact that there were people dying in the Harris County Jail who were not even supposed to be there.
Wow.
There are breakdowns at so many levels here, and it seems that, solutions are sometimes posed, but it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
People are dying in a jail. And again, there's a difference between jails and prisons too, right? This is a jail. It's stunning that this continues to happen.
Yeah, when you're in jail, you're supposed to get your day in court. You're not guilty of the crime, right? So like, you don't even get that moment to get your trial or figure out next steps. And that is what's so frustrating.
Yeah, I just think it's devastating to continue to read these headlines. Shout out to friend of the pod, Lucio Vasquez, for doing incredible work within the jail system here and the prison system here. But to Maggie's point, I just think it's a continued problem that there are some temporary solutions, but there's really no longstanding effective effort. And I think the more we read about this, the more the problems kind of mount. And I think it will be interesting to see, especially after this report, if this revamps the conversation around what can be done.
I think people need to take this really seriously. I think a lot of times people look at something that's happening in a jail as something that perhaps may never affect them. It does affect a lot of people. It affects a lot of families. These are numbers that are going into the double digits. We're not halfway through the year. This is real impact in a city where people are losing brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, in a public institution that our tax dollars are funding. That's the kind of thing that should elicit a real response from people, I would think.
Yeah. And I hope that the people do respond. And I hope this is something that we get fixed up here as a county, as a city. And I know this is something, again, that DA Sean Tier was very focused on, district attorney. And we'll see, this is something that he has to figure out. The sheriff's office, which manages the Harris County Jail, they need to figure this out. All of our elected officials need to figure this out. This is something that has plagued this city and has cost people their lives. And that's something we shouldn't be okay with. So this is an important update and something we'll be keeping our eyes on. Ready to escape the city this summer? Hit the road and head to Navasota, Texas, where you'll find authentic charm and bold experiences. Navasota's just outside of Houston, and they have live music on the rooftop, fantastic shopping, and of course, Texas flavors. Kick off your 4th of July at the Freedom Festival with food trucks, fireworks, and a live performance by the Texas Eagles Band. And if live music is your thing, you'll love the Sounds of Navasota concert series, featuring live music under the stars. The best part, these events are free. Navasota also has a historic downtown with one-of-a-kind shopping, and at their Sip and Shop event, you can stroll, sip, and support local businesses. And for my foodies, they have so many great restaurants and wineries. This isn't your average detour, it's a full-on experience. Make your summer road trip count. Plan your getaway today at visitnavasota.com. Follow the yellow brick road to the George Theater and let the adventure begin, because The Wizard of Oz, the musical, is playing live on stage at the George Theater from July 9th to August 10th. I can already hear myself singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow as I step into the land of Oz with Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion in this beloved classic. Here's the best part. They have sensory-friendly performances, closed caption performances, an all-ages performance on August 9th, and matinee and evening shows, as well as one double feature day where they'll screen the film. How cool is that? Do something special with your kids, friends, loved ones, or make it a solo date and check out The Wizard of Oz, the musical, at the George Theater. Tickets are going fast, so grab yours today at adplayers.org or call the box office at 713-526-2721. All right, y'all, let's head to the most overlooked stories. Maggie, I want to kick this off with you because this is a problem that is impacting so many Houstonians. And it's not a problem in that, it's not a crime. It's not somebody getting hurt, but it's so annoying. Tell me about this, please.
This is one I am being personally affected by this. So obviously I am very into how do we solve this. I just got my recycling picked up for the first time it was 43 days. And
What?
I will tell you, I have 3 small children. I have 10-month-old twins and I have a 3-year-old. We go through a lot of diapers. So I had a lot of diaper boxes in my house. My laundry room was filled with recycling, and I called 311 several times. And at first I thought it must just be my block, right? Maybe they just missed us. And then I started looking through the 311 data, and recycling pickup in the city has been hugely delayed for it's an insane number of people. And so forgive me, I went through and I pulled some 311 data, and I'm just going to talk about it really quick. So In the past 4 weeks, there have been 8,257 311 calls for missed recycling pickup, which makes it by far the most common call to 311 right now. The
What?
second, the second most common is missed garbage pickup, which has 3,317. Quick math. For every time someone calls for missed garbage, 2.5 people are calling for missed recycling. And so this has gotten really bad in the last few weeks, but if you look at the 311 data, you can go back even further. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is I looked at the past 12 weeks. And in the past 12 weeks, there have been over 12,000 cases. If you
Whoa.
if you look at the same time from last year, the number one call was for storm debris pickup. Makes sense. We had just had the derecho, we were 5 or 6 weeks removed. Even then, in the same amount of time, the number of calls for storm debris removal were only 10,100. So we have had more calls for late recycling in these last 12 weeks than we had for people saying, I've got trees down, I have this and that. And that's how, when I was looking through the data, I was like, oh my goodness, this isn't just my East End neighborhood. The entire city is having a massive recycling problem right now.
That is just so shocking to hear. Maggie, do you have any idea as to why, or did you find any reasons behind what could be contributing to this issue?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. So if you look at the city's budget presentation from last month, one of the reasons that collection rates were down is because of, quote, limited resources create challenges in providing scheduled collection services. These limited resources appear to be like a lack of trucks and a lack of personnel. So right now, the city is saying that we're down about 45 plus trucks, which is a massive number. And the city is working to fix that. In April, City Council approved $11.2 million to purchase new trash trucks. That included $4.5 million for 10 zero emissions trash trucks. But in total, the city is going to buy about 35 new trucks, which does not make up for 45 plus trucks down.
No.
And when you dive even deeper into that, only 19 of the trucks that were approved for purchase are side loaders, those trucks that come through and they pick up your trash from the side. The remaining 16 are like forklifts. They're heavy storm debris pickups. They're rear loaders.
Yeah.
So we have a deficit of trash trucks, but I don't actually see us fixing that entire gap right now.
I mean, how do you get 45 plus trucks all messed up at the same time? Like, how did we get to this? Because it sounds like it was like a snowball effect almost, where one is out, two is out, and all of a sudden 45 plus trucks are out of commission. And we're faced with this issue now because we should have fixed these trucks as they were being messed up.
Such a great question.
Right?
That is a
It's
question.
such a simple thing.
Is it not? That is a question that I have posed to city officials a few times, and I have not gotten an answer because you're right. It's not like you go from 0 trucks down to 45 trucks down at the stroke of midnight one day. So I do know that one of the reasons they had to appropriate so much money to buy new trucks in this coming budget cycle is that historically, the city has purchased used trucks. So, I mean, that tells you that you're not getting the lifespan out of them. Breakdowns are a lot more common. There's also issues with staffing shortages, and you have to wonder whether some of that is the mechanical staff in addition to drivers. But in terms of how and why are 45 plus trucks down right now, if somebody has the answer for that, please email me at mgordon@san.com because I am working on this story and my mind is being boggled by that.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel the same way that you do, Maggie, especially in terms of wanting to search for answers as to why it's happening and what's, been taking so long to address the issue. But I do think it's unfortunate. And I have seen so much reporting, to your point, about trash pickup as well, being delayed and not coming to certain neighborhoods and areas. And so I really hope that Houston City Council can figure out what needs to be done in order to address this and get the trash materials, recycling materials off our streets.
By the way, if you do have a bunch of boxes like Maggie did in her laundry room just stacking up, there are recycling plants across the city that you can take them into. The lines are pretty long, so, plan ahead if you're thinking about dropping off your boxes there. But that is such a hassle. I just wouldn't it be nice for the recycling truck to just pick them up? And then, of course, call 311. It looks like that might help, but in your case, Maggie, it didn't. So I'm not sure. This is so frustrating.
I think it is a really good piece of advice to call 311. As I've been working on this story, I've been talking to people. And there was a woman that I spoke to just a couple of days ago, and she called 311, I want to say maybe Monday morning. And on Tuesday afternoon, I got a text from her that said, they picked up my recycling. And for me, again, I called 311 three times, but eventually they did pick up my recycling this past Monday. So I am holding out hope that these 311 calls are being answered. That is their job. I know they work very hard. I'm sure that they are being cataloged. But also, whenever any city service breaks down, call 311 because without the data to show how big of a problem it is, they don't know that things should be escalated. So it's always important when a city service breaks down to ensure that you're reaching out to somebody who can fix it so they know the problem exists.
Okay, y'all, we talked a couple weeks ago about the Galleria and people's frustration with safety there. Well, it's back in the news because this week there was a video that went so viral of a man jumping from the second floor of the Galleria onto the ice rink and breaking his legs. Now, Slim Thug, yes, the rapper of all people, posted video of the actual jump itself, and this is so wild. The man apparently stole some sunglasses and was chased by officers until he made the decision to go for it and jump from the second floor of the Galleria, land on the ice, and immediately breaking his legs. This is not good news for the Galleria. Look, this is our iconic mall. It's been in the news for shootings, theft, and the bad press is out of control. First of all, Faith, did you see this video? What did you think?
Yeah, so I did see the video. I didn't see the actual jump, and I don't think I want to see the actual jump,
it's
to be
not good.
honest with you. But I did see a video where you see the individual lying on the ground, and then I'm pretty sure several of the skating attendants came over. I think a lot of people were making jokes about it. I don't think it's very funny. I mean, it's first of all bad press for the Galleria, sure, but set that aside, I just feel bad for the man because I mean, he was stealing, which is one thing, but I also think that I don't know what the thought process was. I don't know if he was expecting the ice to be soft, or I don't know why he would be, but breaking both legs and also just in a split second making that decision, I know that I would be scared, and it looks like it was really painful. So I hope that he recovers and, whatever comes from the situation comes from the situation. But I think it's definitely a decision to jump from the second floor of the Galleria onto the ice rink that I would not want anybody to do.
Yeah. And I've seen videos of the man doing the actual stealing. He posted himself stealing those glasses and was kind of mocking it. And then when he gets caught, you see the final results. But yeah, it's hard to watch. Maggie, your thoughts on this one? Did you see it?
So like Faith, I saw the video afterward where he's laying there awkwardly and I did not see him jump. I remember there was a basketball player who broke his leg in a weird place 10 years ago during the NCAA tournament. And I remember watching it and feeling queasy. It's just not something I even want to think about. But you have to wonder, this person who allegedly, stole those sunglasses, how familiar were they with the Galleria? Did they know that was going to be ice? Because the fact that there was ice there feels like salt on the wound to me, because like Faith said, you have that split second to do the calculation and you're probably oh, okay, there's a whatever percent chance I'm going to break my legs. And then as you're falling, you're ice, and it just gets worse.
No, Maggie, he looks down and he it's obvious it's ice. And he's still I think I can make this jump. I think it was almost it's not that high of a jump. And I'm really? Have you been to the second floor of the Galleria? It's scary.
Also, have you been on ice? I've gone ice skating downtown. I have bruises for a week from falling from my feet.
It's
you know
hard.
what I mean? This is Houston. We don't have a lot of highly trained ice skaters here. It just seems like a hazard that should have been really factored into any decision making there.
Yeah. And for the Galleria, they've been adamant about they've got so many security officers on site and they spend millions of dollars on security. They posted that statement after that shooting that was caught on camera, which, by the way, that suspect who just opened fire in the garage was captured by the cops. That was a couple of weeks ago, but that was 3 straight shootings. I hope our iconic mall can get it together because it's fun to go walk around and see people in the stores and all that. But if people don't feel safe and this is happening in nonstop bad news, eventually people will stop going. Ready to have some fun this summer? Well, downtown Houston is where you need to head because they're jam-packed with cool events every day. You know I love a good workout, and downtown Houston has so many free fitness classes. Plus, they have brand new dance classes at Market Square Park featuring merengue, bachata, and salsa. Just want to relax? How about some live music or their awesome movies under the stars? And you can't forget about their summer trivia nights at Trebley Park. There's something for everyone. So grab the kids, the dog, your date, or just yourself and enjoy your summer in Houston's original neighborhood. Here's one last tip. Blanket Bingo is back this month, but act fast because tickets do sell out. Find the full list of events at downtownhouston.org or text downtown to 56512 for all the fun at your fingertips. Downtown Houston. Get energized and revived.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
All right, y'all, it's time for our moments of joy. It's been a long week, so let's end on a happy note. Maggie, I want to kick it off with you. What do you got? What was your moment of joy this week?
Yeah, I had a really great moment of joy. Houston is such a phenomenal city, and I'm working on a story about the increase in needs for volunteers at the food bank here. For people who don't know, we have the largest food bank in the country. And every year they have 90,000 volunteers. And that's not people who volunteer for 90,000 shifts. That's if I volunteer 4 times, I still only count as one.
Wow.
And that's amazing. That really, I think, gets to the heart of this beautiful city that we live in. And I got to spend some time there with some volunteers this week and just, talk to an 11-year-old who was there with his mom and see people want to do something to help their neighbors. And that always brings me a lot of joy.
Oh, that's perfect. That is so beautiful. But I want to ask you about this when you were there. What were the talks about the federal cuts, to a lot of programs? I know the Houston Food Bank is going to be impacted by some cuts. How is everything going with funding with the food bank?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons that they need more volunteers. What I wanted to see and the reason that I went there is, when you lose funding, you have to find new creative ways to do things. And a lot of the funding that was lost dried up the supply chain for the actual food that was coming in. So the food bank had to find some really creative solutions. And while I was there, they had a literal ton of rice, a 2,000-pound box of rice that these volunteers had to hand scoop into 2-pound bags.
Whoa.
And so with previous funding, they were able to get a lot of food in different ways, and they didn't need to do that extra kind of stuff. So this army of volunteers that I was able to spend a little bit of time with, they are swooping in to solve things in a creative way. And it was just one of those all hands on deck kind of moments. And I mean, we see that in Houston once a year whenever we have a natural disaster, right? And it reminds you why you live in this swampy, silly city.
Oh, that is beautiful. And I'm glad the volunteers are stepping up. And if you want to volunteer at the Houston Food Bank, I'm dropping a link in our show notes where you can sign up and be part of this big call to action and get people out there and help them out when they need it the most. Faith, what is your moment of joy?
Yeah, so my moment of joy is Beyonce coming home to Houston this weekend.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure everybody's super excited about it, but I just thought of when I heard the news and when I was reminded she was coming to town, I was also reminded of Andrew Nova on the podcast, always talking about how much she loves Beyonce, and that was a highlight of my weekends when I would
Yeah.
listen to CityCast. So I just think shout out to our queen, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy the concert who's attending.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be good. But I do want to mention one thing about these big concerts. We're getting priced out of concerts. It's crazy how expensive concerts are. I've seen resale tickets as high as $8,000 for front row seats for Beyonce. But even if you just wanted to get a normal seat, like $300, $400 just to go see a concert is ridiculous, in my opinion. That goes against everything music is about. Like, music is accessible, music is fun, everyone can enjoy it. But when these major concerts, and this isn't a Beyonce issue, this is every major artist, when their tickets are this expensive, it really prices out a lot of people. And that's frustrating. I know you weren't ready for this rant, but this is something that's been bothering me. So I wanted to speak my truth here.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. And actually, I was just having a conversation with my parents about this because they went to see the opera singer Andrea Bocelli. It was at the Toyota Center. And I think they also spoke to the fact that, those tickets were expensive.
Yeah.
And it's difficult when everything else is expensive too, to get that little moment of joy and pleasure out of seeing your favorite artist when it may kind of set you back a little bit financially.
Yeah.
If you look at the annual Kinder survey, it's like 45% of Harris County people do not have access to $400 in an emergency, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about pricing people out, it's not just like, oh, some people don't have this luxury money. Nearly half of the people who live here couldn't afford this if it was, putting food on their table. So the affordability for concerts is just, there needs to be a reckoning, right?
Yeah, I hope there is, because I would love to go to more concerts, but I'm not going to spend $200 to sit in the nosebleeds. Like, it's just too much. But if people want to see some artists tonight for under $30, and I've got something for you, because it is DJ Screw Day. And one, I really want y'all to check out this amazing Houston Explained story that Brooke Lewis wrote for Hey Houston, and it's up on our website at houston.citycast.fm about DJ Screw Day and why we celebrate it here in the city of Houston. And tonight is Screwfest, where Houston hip-hop legends Lil Flip, Lil Kiki, Zero, they're all celebrating DJ Screw and the iconic chopped and screw style of Houston music that put us on the map. And the tickets are under $30. So if y'all want to go see some great artists, celebrate DJ Screw Day tonight, then check this event out. It's in downtown at the Encore. So I wanted to send some love to our OG legends and to celebrate DJ Screw Day. Maggie, Faith, that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us here on CityCast Houston. Can't wait to have y'all back on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raheel. It's always great to talk with you. And thanks, Maggie, for joining.
This was so much fun. I always appreciate talking to you guys at CityCast. And Faith, it was so great to finally meet you.
That was Cron.com's trending news reporter, Faith Bugenhagen, and Maggie Gordon. She's a senior editor with Straight Arrow News, an online publication that focuses on just the facts and hearing from both sides of the issues. Hey, before we go, come hang out with me and the rest of the CityCast Houston team on July 10th at St. Arnold Brewing for our 713 Day pre-party. This event is free, and the first 25 people will get a drink on us. Just RSVP with the link in our show notes, and I can't wait to see you there. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with 3 of your friends who live inside the loop, and drop us a rating and review wherever you're listening. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Adrian Gonzalez and Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editor is Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Special thanks this week to our content director, Andrea Salenzi. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos, with additional music courtesy of Hip Color of EpidemicSound.com, plus Rob McAllister, White Noise Maker, and Rosedale from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. We'll be back on Monday to discuss just how much Houston police is cooperating with ICE and why the mayor continues to deny it. Thank you for listening, and I hope your recycling gets picked up. Maggie, you don't have to respond. Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to get that in.
No, actually, Maggie, I think you need to solve all the problems with
Yeah,
your skin.
yeah.
Solutions journalism.